Okay, so I went to elementary school in the 60s, and so you don't have to do the math in your head. That means I'm in my 60s, but that's not the point here. In the 1960s, we were totally immersed in what now we have come to know as revisionist history. History that was written by the winners for the winners. And although it was fun drawing turkeys and making felt pilgrim hats, I think we missed out on the deeper meaning of being thankful when we weren't given the whole story. Our whitewashed holiday was not better. It was easier, but it was incomplete. And maybe in the language of psychology, we might say, we were not facing our shadow side, and until we did, our gratitude would not be complete. So let's get real and face the facts, and maybe not the whole story, but a little closer to the truth. We know that only half of the Mayflower's original passengers and crew lived through the harsh winter in their first New England spring. And when that first March came, the remaining settlers started to build what would be their new home, and they received a surprising visit from an Abenaki Indian who greeted them in English. And then he left and came back with another friend. He returned with Squanto, a member of the Paxatuck tribe, a person who had been kidnapped by English sea captains, had been sold into slavery before escaping to London and then getting a ship back to his homeland. Squanto taught the pilgrims who were weakened by malnutrition and illness how to cultivate corn, to extract sap from maple trees, how to catch fish in the rivers, how to avoid poisonous plants. And he helped the settlers forge an alliance with a Wampanoag tribe, a local tribe, and this alliance would endure for close to 50 years. And yet we need to remember that this was tragically one of the only examples of harmony between European colonists and Native Americans. So then these pilgrims celebrated at Plymouth for 3 days after they had brought in their first harvest in 1621. There were 50 of them who had survived the trip and the winter. There were around 90 Native Americans. And our elementary school story of the first Thanksgiving pretty much ends right there. Much of our understanding of Thanksgiving focuses on a peaceful cross-cultural exchange between the Pilgrims and the Indians. And while it is true that the Wampanoags and the planters shared in this harvest celebration, within 50 years, this tribe would no longer be a free people. So for many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is not a cause of celebration, but a reminder of colonization's devastating impact on indigenous people. So maybe we need to hear a little more of the whole story. Jacqueline Keeler is a member of the Diné tribe and the Yankton Dakota Sioux. She shares the story of Thanksgiving. She writes, when the Pilgrims came to Plymouth Rock, they were poor and hungry, and half of them died within a few months. And when the Squanto, a Wampanoag man, found them, they were in a pitiful state, and their English crops had failed, and the native people fed them through the winter and taught them how to grow food. But these were not merely friendly Indians. They had already experienced European slave traders raiding their villages for 100 years before that, and they were wary. But it was their way to give freely to those who had nothing. Among many of our peoples, showing that you can give without holding back is the way to earn respect. Among the Dakota, they say, when asked to give, are we not Dakota and alive? Of course we give. It was believed that by giving, there would be enough for all. Sadly, the opposite of the system we now live in, which is based on selling, not giving. To the Pilgrims and most English and European people, the Wampanoags were heathens. They were of the devil. They saw Squanto not as an equal, but as an instrument of their God to help his chosen people themselves. At the first Thanksgiving, the Wampanoags provided most of the food and signed a treaty granting the Pilgrims the right to land at Plymouth, the real reason for the first Thanksgiving. And what did the Europeans give in return? Within 20 years, European diseases and treachery had decimated this tribe. Cowpox from cows led to smallpox, one of the great killers of our people. It spread through the blankets used by infected Europeans. Some estimate the disease accounted for a death toll reaching 90% in some Native American communities. By 1623, Mather the Elder, a Pilgrim leader, was giving thanks to his God for destroying the heathen savages to make way for a better growth, meaning his people. Keeler continues, in stories told by the Dakota people, an evil person always keeps his or her heart in a secret place, and the hero must find that secret place in order to stop the evil. So Keeler writes, I see in the first Thanksgiving the story of a hidden pilgrim heart. And what did it hold? It held bigotry, it held greed, it held self-righteousness. Where is the hero who will destroy the heart of evil? I believe it must be each of us. So when I give thanks this Thursday, I will be thinking of this hidden heart and how my ancestors survived. Because if we can survive with our ability to share and to give intact, then the evil and the goodwill that met that Thanksgiving day in the land of the Wampanoag will have come full circle, and the healing can begin. This is the story of the first Thanksgiving from the other side. For our country, another century or so went by after that first celebration, and then in 1789, George Washington issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation. He called on Americans to express their gratitude for the happy conclusion to the country's War of Independence. And some states and cities continued to hold Thanksgiving celebrations on their own into the next century. And then in 1863, at the height of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln issued a proclamation entreating all Americans to ask God to commend his tender care to all those who have become widows and orphans, mourners, or sufferers in this lamentable civil strife, and to heal the wounds of a nation. And he scheduled Thanksgiving throughout the country for the final Thursday in November. And just to let you know that consumerism is not a new thing, Franklin Roosevelt tried to move Thanksgiving to the third weekend of November in order to give more time for shopping and to boost the economy after the Depression. But he caught a lot of flack for that one, and they put it back at the end of November. Thanksgiving seems to make a recurrence following the tragic losses of war. So why do we need to know that? Why am I saying this? I'm saying it because I want reality. Reality is hard, and sometimes it's ugly, and it may feel less inspiring at first to admit that we come from people with less than pure motives. But I believe that our gratitude will, in fact, be more pure and more honest when it comes with confession. And I agree with Jacqueline Keeler that we can only be the hero who overcomes evil when we find the hidden heart of evil that lies within our past and within ourselves. It's only when we shine a light on our own shadow side that we'll be able to come full circle and begin healing ourselves and our culture and our country. We started this morning singing about being thankful. We listened to a scripture where Jesus tells us to stop worrying. And I think worry may be where we begin to go wrong. Worry is where we let our fears take over that lead us places our hearts don't want to go. Don't worry. Is that really possible? I think we ask ourselves that a lot. I can worry about work, and I can worry about my family. The possibilities are endless. I can worry about money and finances and the economy. In our day and age, the news media doesn't help at all because their finances are dependent on us worrying. There are problems close by and around the world, and there's nothing like trouble to attract viewers and ratings. There are car accidents and shootings and robberies happening somewhere, and they could be happening to us. Commercials are constantly inviting us to worry about needing one more thing, and no time more than this time of year. Because if you can't afford to buy your loved one a BMW, you obviously don't have enough. So how can these words of Jesus break through our fear-filled minds and lead us to a deeper, truer gratitude? Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or your body, what you will wear. Do not be anxious about your life. The most used phrase in the New Testament is fear not, over and over again. Don't be afraid. The reason for this is surely that God knows, and Jesus wants us to know, that fear and worry are not life-giving states of mind. They do not heal or create or sustain life. Instead, they corrode and corrupt and steal our joy and lead us to hoard and do harm to keep what we think we have. Jesus offers this piece of advice: don't be anxious for your life. I think he's really on to something. Barbara Baumgartner suggests, instead of nursing our worries and our fears, we can change our focus. We can look elsewhere beyond our self-absorption. We can cultivate a grateful heart. And gratitude does not come easily when we're caught in the grip of anxiety. Gratitude comes from slowly moving away from worry and fear by intentionally stopping to find something, anything, one thing to be thankful for. And then adopting gratitude. And when we do, we discover the abundance that is in our life. Look at the birds of the air. Consider the lilies of the field. Jesus sees a direct involvement of the Creator in all of natural beauty and tells us that it doesn't matter that this doesn't last, for God cares even about those things that are transitory and quickly passing. And gratitude doesn't require pretending that everything is perfect, or that we are perfect, or that our ancestors or our country are perfect. Our gratitude will be deepest and most authentic when it comes from a place of truth. When we have seen our shadow side, when we have confessed our complicity, when we have found empathy with those whose loss came from our gain, when we have forgiven those whose gain has come from our loss. It doesn't mean that we deny our pain or our grief from loss. For gratitude notices that the pain of loss comes from the very things that bring us joy. It allows us to remember and relive the joys that we have had. And when we can do that, we find that we are able to rejoice with others rather than focus on our fears. So this week, as you observe Thanksgiving Day, it might be just another average, not particularly memorable season, maybe something that you are looking forward to. In whatever spirit you are approaching Thanksgiving, let your thoughts of gratitude lead you to a true and deep thankfulness. Thankfulness that calms your fears and leads you to move outwards towards others with the love of God, so that together we can continue and complete the circle and the healing of our world.